Hello class, and welcome to the video lecture for Accounting for Property, Plant, Equipment, and Intangible Assets. Learning Unit 4 is about recording the expense associated with the use of intangible assets and natural resources. Natural resources are long-term assets such as coal or timber. These long-term assets are used up just like any other long-term asset, and this use is recorded in the same way as depreciation, except we call it depletion. To deplete means to use up. Usually the units of production method is used to determine the amount of depletion in each accounting period. Let's take the example of a coal deposit, which is on page 607 of the textbook. If a coal deposit has 200,000 tons available and was purchased for $200,000, the depletion per ton is $1. So if 91,000 tons of coal were removed from the deposit, the depletion that year would be recorded as a debit to depletion of coal deposit of $91,000 and a credit to accumulated depletion for $91,000. Intangible assets are long-term assets that have no physical substance but do represent valuable legal rights and monetary relationships that benefit a company. Examples include patents, copyrights, franchises, and goodwill. Intangible assets are recorded at cost on the balance sheet and usually have no contra accounts. This means when we record the expense associated with the use of an intangible asset, we don't use an accumulation account. The process of allocating the cost of an intangible asset over all the periods to which it provides benefits is called amortization. Assets with indefinite lives, which means they last forever, are not amortized. Amortization expense is an operating expense on the income statement. It's just like depreciation, except with a different name. Let's look at some examples. A patent is an exclusive right of the owner to sell or produce his or her discovery or invention. Let's assume that on January 1st, a patent costing $100,000 is purchased. The patent is good for 10 years, so it's amortized over 10 years. On December 31st, we record an adjusting entry to recognize this amortization expense. We debit amortization expense, but we don't credit accumulated amortization. Instead, we credit the intangible asset itself, patent. Another example are copyrights. Copyrights are exclusive rights granted to owners by the federal government to publish artistic or literary or musical work. In the United States, a copyright is granted for the life of the creator and for an additional 50 years. The cost of the copyright is recorded as an asset. It's amortized over its expected useful life with an account called amortization expense because the useful life of a copyright is short. Another example is a franchise. A franchise is the result of someone purchasing an exclusive privilege or right to sell a manufacturer's product or a service in a specifically defined geographical location. Subway, the company in your case study at the end of the chapters, is a franchise. When Stan first opened his Subway store, he purchased a franchise license from the Subway company and recorded a debit to franchise and a credit to cash. The useful life of many franchises are indefinite and are not amortized. Goodwill is an intangible asset that represents the difference between the price paid and the fair market value of the net assets of a company. This occurs when one company buys another company. For example, let's say Company A buys Company B. Company B has net assets of $1 million. However, Company B invented flying cars and holds a patent on the parts that make the car fly, which means no one else can make flying cars. This makes Company B very valuable and its fair market value is $10 million. When Company A buys Company B, Company A acquires the $1 million in assets from Company B and records the extra $9 million as goodwill. Finally, we have asset impairment. If an asset loses value, it is said to be impaired. For example, let's say a company holds the patent for the invention of flying car parts. The patent is valued at $10 million and is on the company's books for that amount. Another company invents transporters, like in Star Trek, that instantly move a person from one place to another, and no one wants flying cars anymore because they're not needed. Now the company's flying car parts patent is only worth $1 million. So the company must debit loss on intangible asset of $9 million and credit the patent account $9 million so the patent account isn't overvalued on the company's balance sheet. This is sometimes referred to as writing down an asset. So that wraps up Chapter 16, and be sure to ask if you have any questions.